Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. This is the...
Did Adam crank it up yet?
Oh, Adam? He's got me, giving me the thumbs up. Thank you. This is the Historic District Commission meeting, Town of Kingston, New Hampshire. I'm Susan Prescott, Chair.
Virginia Morris, Vice Chair.
Madeline Willett, member.
Glenn Koppelman, Select Board Chair. Select Board, oh my God. Representative to the HDC.
Yes.
Rob Trusseau, Planning Board Representative.
Stanley Cholette, member.
Thank you.
Full house tonight.
Full house tonight. So we are, the first thing on the agenda is to welcome Rob Trusseau, I spelled your name wrong, our new planning board rep. So welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Tell us about yourself for 2 seconds.
My name is Rob Trusseau. I live at 140 Main Street with my very large family. 5 years here in Kingston, and I'm very excited to be becoming a member of Town Operates.
And we're glad to hear,
right?
Planning Board.
Perfect. All right, let's get right to it. The first on the agenda is critical correspondence, of which I have none. Did I remember to send out the minutes?
No.
Yes?
Yes.
I think I did.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Right.
It was with the agenda.
Okay. All right, good. So, the minutes of April 11th, 2023, I thought they looked good. Do we have any corrections or additions or anything on the minutes?
I do not.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as written.
Second?
All those in favor? No, first discussion. Any discussion?
I missed them, so I'm bad for that.
Okay, that's okay.
My bad.
All in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Perfect, thank you. Next is town board updates. First, do we have anything from the planning board?
We're all looking at you.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, that's a bad habit.
Force okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Right. The only thing that I have in the planning board is they are, I think it's already on the agenda here, interested in having a joint meeting,
Yes, yeah, we're gonna talk about that later.
but that's all I have.
All right, perfect, thanks. Now, the selectmen.
Well, you know all about that, Susan. We had a long meeting last night.
I heard something about that.
I think you did. And after a bit of a session, the board did come to enough of a consensus to appoint a 5th board member to fill out the rest of Richard Wilson's term for between now and election next March. And it's actually someone, a new resident from the historic district, as it turns out. Her name is Lori Swed, S-Z-W-E-D. Has a military background, really interesting background actually, and brand new to town, wanted to jump in and participate, and so she put her name in. And there were, in the final analysis, we had, oh my gosh, I don't remember, the 7 or 8 names, and we went through several, and hers was the name in the end that got the spot. So we now have a full 5-member board, and onward.
Good, that's good news. Does the Heritage
I
Commission
do.
want to talk about, at this point, what we talked about on the phone?
Sure.
Okay,
I don't know, it's up to you.
all right, yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
We might as well take it.
So, first of all, Selectmen's rep, thank you very much for telling me to meet with Susan Eyre about preserving documents. Because, as you know, over the years they're piling up, and so she and I met for about half an hour, and that was really productive because I realized there are so many things that have already been saved that I don't need to save paperwork. And then I can save, well, I like to save certificates of approval because I give you assignments and things, but that was really productive. Thank you, because I've been waiting.
Get that stuff out of your house.
I'm going to have filing cabinets empty for however many years I've been on the board. Heritage Commission. We had probably the longest Heritage Commission meeting I've ever been to last week, but they are so productive. It's incredible, and I'm shuffling papers here to see if I can find. They did a, Ernie Landry is the chair and Bob Bean is the vice chair, and they did a, where are we gonna focus our attention now? Their stained glass window project is almost all done, and the stained glass windows should be in place for the June celebration, June 10th celebration for the 125th anniversary of Nichols Memorial Library. I think it's from 1 to 3, but don't quote me on that. And our plaques, as I've talked about and been working on, the one for Nichols Memorial Library will be installed in place. And so that should be a wonderful event. So that's really good. But then they started to look at new projects they might do. And they had 2 pages of new projects. But the ones that are really going to be focused on, they'd like to join us with sending letters of information to owners of historic homes. And so we've contacted people in Historic District 1 and 2, but they go broader than that. There are historic homes identified. And so we're working on some wording to talk about the value of historic preservation, their properties, etc. So some people in the team have signed up to work on that. And then I think their biggest project is the Plains Cemetery. As you know, that's recently been put on the National Register, and they have a plaque, and a place for the plaque is going to happen. But in 2025, they're going to have a 300th anniversary celebration. And we're developing a brochure, a walking tour. It's kind of connected to the Hearst House, which is the building just before you go into the Plains Cemetery, which actually sits on Bartlett property. And so they're working on all of that together. And so I signed up to help with that because I'm very interested in that. And then the other thing that I think they've done a remarkable job on, especially Bob Bean and Walt Roy, thank you, who takes hundreds of pictures. They have documented lost histories of houses that have been set for demolition, and they've gone in and done a written history of that house and taken as many pictures as they possibly could about the structure of the house, the setting on the property and all, and before the houses have been knocked down. And they've done several, and now they're they've been made those into booklets. So there's a copy in the library for each one of those, and then they're going to scan those in for preservation, if you will. And there is a set of people, several people who are helping with that. And one more thing that is sort of related to that is demolition review ordinance. That's been poked at a little bit for a number of years, and it's a sensitive thing. I want to tear this down, and you want to come and tell me, let's hold on to it, and so that's quite sensitive. But they want to kind of change the tone of that, not let us tell you what to do with your property, but let's first see if it's worth preserving in word and picture, and see if there's some kind of a, I don't know if it'll end up as an ordinance, but some kind of a way to protect or at least slow down the demolition of historic properties. And so there are about 7 of them, probably 5 come regularly. That's a big bite. And so they work really, really hard. They have 1 new member, that's very good. And so that's a long summary, but it was a long meeting, and they really focused on their books, so that's good.
Good.
And then the next thing I'd like to say is I have been the representative from the Historic District Commission for Heritage Commission for a couple of years, 2 years, I think. And I am going to continue to work on the cemetery project, but I'd like to step down as the representative because I have too many meetings on too many nights. So I'd like to leave that position open for an HDC rep to the Heritage Commission.
And we will talk later on in this meeting after the application is reviewed about finding a replacement for Virginia.
Okay.
As representative. Now, where am I gonna put that? So, thank you all for your updates. The first application that we have, actually the only application that we have, is Daniel, I'm gonna ruin your last name, Mastroianni and Deborah Millette. And come on up and sit in the chairs up here near the mic, please. You'll see the application in front of you that I passed out, although I didn't give it to you.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, right here, sorry. So these people are considering, correct me if I'm wrong, considering purchasing 14 Church Street, and they'd like to discuss the impact of a change of use and moving a sign. I do have a letter from the current owner, Ellie Alessio. This letter serves as notice to Kingston's HDC that Daniel Mastroianni and Deborah Millette, potential buyers for my property located at 14 Church Street, have my permission to act as my representatives before the HDC to apply for and discuss a change of use for the aforementioned property. Thank you for your assistance in this matter, Electra Alessio. So, let's give the board members a couple more minutes to review your application, and then we'll start chatting about it, okay?
Can we get clarification on the drawing? If Church Street is to the left?
Right here. Oh. This is Church Street right here.
This is the old town newspaper, this is the house.
No, because
But
this
no,
is the driveway.
This is Church Street.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, you did.
And there's, yes.
Yes, Church Street.
This goes
Hmm?
Susan, may I ask a question for clarification?
Sure.
The sketch that you handed out, Dan, of the ramp,
Yes.
looks a little different than what's in the application, is?
Yes, it's,
So-
if
so
you
the-
notice, the ramp was moved a foot away from the building. It's still the same dimensions, but a foot away from the building. I was concerned about the runoff from the roof, icing.
Yep.
Figured if we could move it out. It lines up with the landing itself up at the top.
I see.
Right, whereas before, on the application, the landing stuck out
Yes.
a little bit.
Code requires it to be 5 foot, 5 by 5 minimum. it's only 4 foot, so we have to bump it out a foot, and then we're just gonna have the ramp follow the same line down, and leave a foot between the ramp and the building to make it a little more secure, safe.
Okay, thanks.
I'm having trouble with this. Give me the perspective. Where's Main Street? I mean Church Street. Oh, driveway to the house is here. So the house is here.
Yeah, so Church Street is here. Is that true? Yeah, because parking, because the sign is way back there.
This is grass. Crushed stone. Where's,
That's the building, this is the CTN building.
It's the
So
building
part
that
of the
sets back
building is-
from the road.
Correct.
I didn't read that well enough.
The
Is it talking
children's
about
center is on the
Is
apartment
left.
upstairs
To the left,
and
as you look at the
antique
property.
down?
Yes, yep, that's what it says. Second floor of the commercial.
I didn't
First floor
absorb
will be antiques, second floor will be a one-bedroom apartment.
I didn't catch it.
Okay, there's okay. Sorry, it's taken us a little while to absorb all of this.
It's fine.
Dan and Deb. So I looked at this property today, and I see the parking out in front of the Carriage Down News building, which is going to be, you planning antique store on the first floor, apartment on the second floor, so there's quite a bit of parking out in front there.
Yes.
And then there's gravel going towards that building. And then there's a driveway along the house. On here, I didn't go on the property, so I didn't go way back. So here, where his Church Street, and this is your driveway, what is this line? It goes past the house towards the lake. Is that more driveway?
That's more driveway, correct.
Yeah.
It goes down
That's-
into the backyard.
That goes down into the whole backyard, which accesses the back of the barn and the back of the building.
Okay, so that's your driveway and your
Yes.
access to your building.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
There are two structures on the same lot?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. But this application is for only one of the buildings.
Because we're gonna live in the residence and not make any changes to it.
All of the proposed changes are for the Carriage Town. Is it okay with you if we call it the Carriage Town News Building?
Sure,
Is that
of course,
fine what we call it?
yeah.
Okay. So the handicap ramp would be on the Carriage Town News Building, the apartment above, the second floor would be in that building, and the antique shop would be in the first floor of that building. So the house itself is going to be remaining untouched.
And then there's gonna be the addition of an apartment in the Carriage Town building.
Yes, a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor.
So would that fall, does that fall under the ADU ordinance?
From what I understand, it would be too large to be an ADU.
It's greater than,
A third? Is it a third?
800 feet or something, I'm not exactly sure.
forget the numbers?
Right, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
But it's basically you take the second floor and just make it into a, I guess you call it an open concept type one-bedroom apartment.
So the dimensions of that building are 50 by 35?
35 by 50, I believe it is.
Yep.
And is it a full second story, or is it's a full second story? Oh, all right,
It's
so
got
it's
a
under
little bit
the
of a
eaves.
slant on the sides. Yes.
So technically, the upstairs apartment wouldn't be,
40 by 30,
yeah, it wouldn't be that big, because you'd take away for the slant of the eaves. And is there a stairway internally to the upstairs?
One
Oh,
comes in from the front door, when you look at the front of the building, the one enters, you can go either way into the first floor area, and then the one goes straight upstairs to the second floor.
Okay,
And then when you come in the back door, you come into a hallway, and there's a stairway upstairs, and then into the store downstairs.
perfect, that's
So
good.
all the stairways are internal to the building.
That's good, actually.
So, yeah, so it has its 2 fire egresses.
Yes.
So just a point of clarification before we go too much further with this.
Yeah,
The downstairs, the retail, it uses the full square footage.
correct.
Yes.
If I did the math right, it's 1,750 square feet.
Yes,
Well, yeah, something like
that's
that.
what I got too, Glenn.
Oh, okay, so it's not that well, let me read the section of the ordinance, just, it's 102.5, description and permitted uses, and in the district, retail stores are permitted, principally designed to serve shoppers from the community, fine. The HDC may approve retail stores of 1,500 feet, 1,500 square feet or less. Public hearings must be advertised and held for requests for retail areas greater than 1,500 square feet. So it might be another step in the process, that's all I'm saying.
Well, if you, and I don't know the exact measurement, but when you come in the back door, that's not part of the shop area, that's the hallways, and so it does bring that square footage down. How wide is that hallway?
It's gotta be 10 feet.
I don't know that we need to
It's probably 10 foot wide.
harp on it now, but it's just something to be clarified.
Yeah, I don't think we need to worry too much about that this evening. If it does turn out to be that higher than, what did you say, 1,500 square feet, then we will need a public hearing, that's all. But that's not going to stop what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay?
We can comply with that without any problem.
Right, yes. Does anyone need any more time? Any board member need any more time looking at this application?
So I'm in an uncomfortable place
Okay.
because recent advisement by the town attorney says that we cannot talk about use,
Yes.
only the impact of use. I am concerned about a house, an apartment, and a business on the same lot and change of use, but I'm not allowed to speak about it. And that concerns me for the ethics of the applicant who may make a decision to purchase a piece of property that another board might negate. And so I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place and that I'm not allowed to speak about it, but at the same time, I don't want an earnest applicant who's done a terrific job with the piece of property they own right now to blunder into something that might not be able to happen later. And so I am, and I know later on we're going to discuss the findings from that attorney, which are not complete yet because we have not had the complete memorandum. We have a 1.5 page memorandum, and I'm conflicted about how to be fair to the applicants, and I see no problem with the kinds of changes they want to use, but I read very carefully our ordinances And I'm not sure that those three things are allowed on one piece of property. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. So I'm gagged from talking about it, and it makes me very uncomfortable
I
on
second
behalf
that.
of the applicants.
May I'm not sure I understand what's happening. Why can't you talk about it?
We've been advised by the town's attorney that the Historic District Commission may only speak about the impact of a change of use, not the actual change of use, because that is another board's purview.
Which other board?
Either the zoning board, or if you need site plan review, it would be the planning board.
We sent a letter to the planning board on April 17th.
Okay.
And they advised that they had no further action. They would take no further action on the application and asked and told us to come here. So here we are.
No action was
No
required
action
on
was
their
required.
part, but we needed to come here to get an approval for the use.
So, I mean, Rob is here from planning board.
I believe it.
And Lynn is in the audience for.
Yeah, I believe the mixed use already exists. And to us, I don't think we saw a change of use.
Okay.
Other than you have residential and commercial. The business goes in, it's still commercial, whether it's retail or office. The residence was an existing residence. The office building was an existing commercial piece of property, thus the mixed use, which I don't think we actually have a definition called mixed use in there. But so to us, it didn't come upon us that we're not changing anything. We have no jurisdiction.
Except that you're adding an additional use on a piece of property.
It would still be
one-bedroom apartment.
residential
Yeah.
with a commercial.
Well, then you've got two residences and a commercial use, so you're.
With the residences, I believe when you came in, it was, we have a 3-bedroom, we're going back to a 2-bedroom, that way we have, because it came into a septic issue as well, of how much use of the septic, the calculations on that, how many bedrooms you can have on that size system, and it was a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, compared to just 1 3-bedroom, and that's just how we saw that.
Okay, so if it was, I guess my question is because the purchase of the property depends on whether they get the go-ahead from this board. They have pretty much, according to the planning board, already gotten the go-ahead from the planning board. So you didn't see anything that would say,
Correct.
don't.
That would change, that would bring it into our jurisdiction to actually have a meeting on it.
Okay.
Because the use that already exists, if you had residential, if that newspaper building, I'm sorry, the Kingston, Carriagetown News Building was a residential, and they wanted to change that into an antique shop, that's a whole different thing.
So they would probably have to, when they build the apartment, I mean, I'm not even supposed to talk about this, I guess, pay an impact fee, like any other.
For the application for the building permit.
Yeah, so it would just be considered, all right, I understand that.
Yeah, only because you have residential and you have commercial, and I understand your concern there. I mean, my personal feeling is if you're gonna cut a piece off a commercial and make it residential in the historic district, I kind of like that. It's cutting down on the use on that.
So, I trust that whoever oversees septic design will be just fine with the septic design. So you see a 3-bedroom house converted to a 2-bedroom house and a 1-bedroom separate building as the same building, as the same, there are 2 separate buildings. You're making sure the septic system works, because now this is just 2 bedrooms and this is just 1 bedroom. So the septic system is fine. But this is ownership and this is an apartment. That's very different than saying 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom septic system. And the planning board was fine with that.
Correct.
So just to be clear, and I'll ask it of both of you, the planning board said that no site plan review is required.
If it's okay with the board, Lynn would like to speak. Is that okay with you guys as well? This is Lynn Merrill.
The way the planning board looked at it was residences are allowed in the district, and so is commercial, and we're just changing a residence, adding the apartments are allowed in the district as well. So they didn't see a problem. It's a 600 gallons per day septic system.
I don't care about the septic system.
And so, but anyway, the house only has 2 bedrooms anyway. And why it got mislabeled as 3, we don't know, but it only has 2 bedrooms, and there's more than enough gallons per day to take care of the building. The planning board also looked at the impact of it and felt that there'd be far less traffic on this building than it was when it was Carriagetown News, when they had the house rented out, and they had all of the employees, as well as all of the customers coming into the building. Here, there's only 2 employees and 1 or 2 maybe tenants, so they felt that the use was going to be far less impactful than the use that had been there in the past, and therefore they felt that there was no further review needed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the questions that all right, let me put this back. The way I see it, for this application, we have 3 things. Review the impact of the change of use. It's not really a change of use anyway, because it's a retail, right? So is there going to be an impact? That's the first thing that we need to talk about. The impact of putting it, will the second floor apartment have an impact on the historic district? And thirdly, moving the location of the sign. Those are the things that we are charged with addressing tonight. And yes, business is changing a little bit here, and it is very uncomfortable right now. So please deal with us. We're having to do our business a little bit differently than we have been before. If it's okay with you, I'd like to separate those things out. So, Historic District Commission, do we have thoughts and comments on the impact of this going from a Carriagetown News operation to an antique store with an apartment above, being that there's the only change to the exterior of the building is to be putting in a handicap ramp. No other changes to the exterior of the building.
As far as traffic is concerned, there's more traffic on Church Street than there is on Main Street. Because I've counted the cars, and I drove the bicycle to Carriagetown Plaza. I counted the cars for an hour on Church Street, and then when I came back to Main Street to go to East Way, I counted the cars again. And on Church Street, there's 3 times more cars than there are on Main Street. Now that place on 14 Church Street used to be the newspaper business there, Carriagetown News. There was just as much traffic there as it is now. I mean, people go in there to have articles put into the paper and so forth. And so there's quite a few parking spaces.
So do you think that the change, that putting an antique store in there will have a negative impact on the historic district, or not?
I don't think it would have any more of an impact than it did with the newspaper business.
Okay, all right, that was the question. So that's good, thank you.
It seemed to be equal, A equals B, so to speak.
Yeah, okay. I agree, Stanley, I don't think that it will have a negative impact on our historic district, as far as traffic, noise, congestion. So, I'm going to be asking that question. The next one, just on the antique shop with the apartment above, is the proposal inconsistent with or detrimental to buildings or uses on adjoining lands? No, I don't think so either. No. Will the proposal detract from the character and quiet dignity of the historic district? Not one bit, I don't think. Hopefully it's such a successful antique business that you do have a parking problem, I don't know. Okay, the second thing that we were gonna talk about, oh, I've lost my mind here. The parking is already there. The handicap ramp is the next thing that we need to talk about. That's the only change to the appearance of the building. So let's talk about can you tell us what the materials that you would propose to use would be on your ramp? What is it going to be built out of? I have the measurements.
It'll all be built out of wood.
Wood?
Yes.
Pressure treated wood?
Most likely.
All right, so pressure treated wood, would it be painted after it's dried out?
When it finally ages and dries, yes.
And, okay, all right, so you paint it so that it sort of blends in a little bit better with,
Is there any way to put it on the back of the building?
No,
There's
there's no access to the back.
There's no way.
There's nothing back there? No open space at all?
No access to the building.
Oh,
Other than
Drops
the cellar.
down.
drops.
Once you go beyond the building, it drops off. I mean,
Okay.
the ramp would have to start here to get there.
So it's gonna start at the front of the building?
It's,
At the
And go upward toward the back? Or the opposite way?
well, it starts at the front of the building and goes up. The deck is already there on the back.
Okay.
It's currently 4 foot by 8 foot.
Okay,
It has to be minimum 5 foot wide, so we have to bump it out a foot. We're gonna leave the existing 8 foot deck that's there, and then just continue the ramp down, and it's almost 8 foot to the front of the building where the ramp ends.
have you thought of maybe disguising part of it with shrubbery or something? It's not really, because it's, if you're looking at the property, it's this way, so it's not like you're seeing that much of a ramp.
So he's got some shrubs here.
Yes, okay,
All the ground area down there is paved,
okay,
but we'll be happy to put in some buckets of flowers for the seasonal, and change them each season, or,
Okay.
whatever to make it look nice. We wanna build.
there's really
a-
nothing you can do to, well, I guess you can see it as you're driving up Church Street a bit, so that would be good.
yeah.
Okay, and that's on there.
So I'm trying to find some lengths here. So
Right
the
here.
whole building itself is how long? 50 feet?
50 feet.
And 27 of it will have the ramp along the side of it.
Plus 8 feet of the
Oh,
deck.
8 feet of deck, okay.
And the deck is there, the landing is there now,
The
I'm assuming
landing
it
is
has
there.
stairs going up to it.
Right, with a set of stairs up to it.
Yep.
And the code requires it to have a handicap ramp somewhere.
Right.
And that's the only place that really works, but it's the least visibility from the street, because when you're looking in, it's only 4 or 5 foot wide.
Right.
Not the length of the building out front.
Right.
Because to put it out front, we'd have to come out and down and around and twist, and it's,
Yep.
I don't think it
And
would
it's
look
gonna
good.
be
Painted,
painted white.
yes.
So would you consider painting it white? The building's white, correct?
What?
The building is white?
Yes,
So after the curing period for pressure treated, which is what, a year? Or so, you would consider painting it white to blend in with the building itself?
Paint white.
yeah, oh, sure, yeah. The new pressure treated is not like the old stuff, if you remember. We used the term real dark, real fast. The new stuff kind of bleaches out now, so it's not as noticeable. And once it dries, then we can stain it white to make it blend.
Okay, paint or stain it, okay. I'm asking some of these details because I get to type up the certificate of approval, and I need details, so I need to know those things. Okay,
You have questions, we'll try to come up with answers.
okay.
So this was an existing business, and that therefore the parking was across the front. Are your tenants going to park out front, or are they gonna park down?
They're designated on the side
Where the crushed stone
where the
is.
crushed stone is.
Okay. This one's over here.
So Mary, I was there shortly, and there's parking out front for customers. In this
customers,
case,
right.
they would be antique store customers. There's a patch of crushed rock. And then, that's why I was asking about the driveway, goes all along the side of the house and kind of around behind.
Correct.
Behind the barn, actually.
Right. And our vehicles will be parked in the barn.
In the barn, you said?
In the barn.
That's one, this is the walkway. It's this, okay. Okay, no, that's good. Okay.
Do we have any more discussion on the ramp, on the exterior of the building?
So, I can't remember all dimensions and slope and everything you were talking about ADA compliant. So I assume you've got the right grade, slope, distance, width, etc.
1 foot per.
1 foot for every inch of rise, that's why it has to be that length, because it's a 28-inch rise to the,
Otherwise, you might get going a little fast.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you have adequate swing room on, I'll call it the deck at the end, to swing a wheelchair into the building?
yes.
Okay.
Code requires 5 by 5. This would end up being 5 by 8,
Okay.
which is,
And if your renter, your resident renter, was upstairs, how would, and they needed a wheelchair, how would they get upstairs?
there's no way to do that. As far
Is this
the
then-
ramp to the second floor,
Is this then intended for the handicap ramp access to your antique store?
yes,
And you would not be able to rent to someone who needed handicap access to the second floor?
probably.
Okay. I don't know. Probably Lynn knows. Are you required to make handicap accessible second floor renting, or can you say we don't have it and therefore you can't apply for it?
I don't believe the code perfectly. I don't think you need it. If they did, if somebody needed it, they could easily put in a stair lift.
The reason I'm asking is because in the past, a number of years ago, someone designed the interior of their house, which we have no control over.
Right.
The way they wanted to. And it needed to have public handicap access. And the design of the interior house and the handicap access that we approved didn't meet ADA compliant. And we had to redesign the whole thing, and all of a sudden, the handicap access was on the front of the house, which was a major change. So I'm just asking that in case you had a renter, or it was required that you could have a renter on the second floor, how would you do that? So now I know.
You probably wouldn't do it with a ramp, it'd be too much of a slope, too high.
Right, no, you wouldn't do it with a ramp, but I'm just wondering, when you have interior, it's their business until it impacts the exterior, that's all I'm saying. And it looks like,
We met with the code enforcement.
yes,
I'm sorry, you know, the,
Recommendation was that we're going to use the ramp to access the business.
yeah.
But there was no mention made of having to do it for the apartment.
so now I have another picky question, because I don't have a problem with the handicap ramp, I do not. I think it's just fine along there.
Yeah.
Is it, ADA acceptable to ask them those that need the handicap ramp to go into the back of your store. And the reason I'm asking is because the handicap access was in the back of a business, and they were not allowed to do that. They said handicap folks have to be able to come through the front door just like everyone else.
Huh.
And I'm only asking that for you for protection so that we give you an approval for something that works for ADA compliance.
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm sure that our code enforcement officer would
My
be able to tell
understanding
you
from
that.
having dealt with it in the past is you're required to have one, but they don't specify where. Okay? They say, as long as you can provide it, that covers the code. And as long as the door is the minimum, or what size in the entrance, then that covers the compliance issue.
I just know we got stuck in one in the past that said, if your clients are coming through the front door, the people need handicap access through the front door. But maybe the back door and the front door of a antique store, I don't know. I'm poking at it because
You don't want them to.
Well,
I don't want people to make a
Purchase that's.
yeah, a purchase that, or they find out it doesn't work, and then they have to come back to us, and now we have to change the design of the handicap
And that's okay,
ramp and all of that.
we've
done it
also,
before.
yeah, we have helped other,
Problem solved.
yeah, we have helped problem solve with handicap ramps before in the past, so it wouldn't be, I don't know.
So that would be
be
probably a picky question, but a good question to ask the code enforcement officer.
Yeah. Do we have any other comments or discussion on the ramp?
No.
I don't have a problem with the ramp myself.
I think the ramp is fine.
And the deck of it will also be made out of, pressure treated?
Yes.
All right, sorry.
Be all the same material.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I'm taking notes on this one too.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Do we have anything to discuss?
I'm just discussing, parking. I know this is, it's a business and parking has already been established there. And I was just looking to see if the tenant is living there, now that it'll be full-time parking all the time. If we could push the parking back out of sight, so it's used in the front when they come and use your business. But the tenant's parking is out of sight, down back toward the dumpster. Is that possible? So instead of right here, down here. I don't, how many, is it a one-bedroom apartment?
One bedroom.
So you need 2 cars
Maximum,
maximum?
And there's ample parking on that stone area.
Oh,
right there.
there's ample parking, the whole thing.
Right. But,
The access to the back the slope area is rather steep. It would be.
Oh, no, not behind, I mean just down the side of the building further. It looks like the parking is up at the grass area. Are you pulling them straight down, or are they going in straight down the driveway, or are they going to angle in?
they'll be headed,
Head in.
They will be headed.
they will be
Okay.
headed parking.
Okay.
Oh, ahead
And we did mention that
That's
area
right,
is deep enough to be parked completely
It's
off
pretty
the
broad.
drive-through, so there's no blocking of any access.
Perfect.
And we have to save, some area for the handicap parking too, so that would be right at the edge of the ramp.
Up here by the, perfect.
And the ramp being where it is the closest way to get in the store for a handicap.
Right.
As opposed to coming in all the way to the street. Yeah, it's the
Right.
shortest distance for them to come in.
Yes, that makes sense.
Any other comments on the ramp? No? Thirdly, then, we can discuss the, just movement of the sign from its current location, and there is pictures of the sign. Do you have a name for the business yet or not?
Not yet.
When you do end up designing your sign, you will need to come back for, we're happy to have an informational discussion, about the appearance of your sign. You know, you already know the sign guidelines are in the ordinances and regs.
They're all pets at this, they've done this before.
Yes, so we'd have to have a discussion about the, you know, what the sign is gonna be made of and look like.
Well, we actually are going to use the sign that's already
It's
there.
already there.
We just wanna move it,
Okay, oh, all right, so the same exact sign.
Same exact sign.
same exact sign.
Right.
We're just gonna take it, restore it, and move it out so you can see it from both sides of the street instead of it being flat against.
Oh, well, that's all right then. Might not have to come
Because
back and
it's
see
just a nice
us.
old sign.
Well, we have to know what it's gonna say.
The only thing we would change would be the
Fonts
lettering
and
on
stuff
it
like that.
with the business.
Yeah, so we would have to, yeah, the business name and what font you choose and make sure that it kind of blends in with the rest of the village here, the look of it.
Well, you have a good track record so far.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you did.
Because you've made things look wonderful at the property you are at right now.
Do we have any other discussion about the sign moving?
Do we need to know for that sign exactly where it's going to sit on the property? Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
On this,
No, I'm thinking it would be like this way because.
It's in that little grassed area where the for sale sign sits right now.
Sorry, I did not see that on the plan. Okay. And so you'd be reading it coming left and right up and down the street. It would be this way, not this way, to the street.
Yes, so it'd be visible from both sides.
So it's the same location, just turn sideways.
Well,
No, it's a
actually
different
moved over.
location.
It's very much in front of the building now.
Right now, the
Yeah.
sign is here,
Yes,
this way.
Right.
It will be here, this way.
over here. Oh, I see, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the sign would
That's
end
okay.
up at the end of the parking lot by the street,
Okay,
set back, whatever the requirements are.
okay.
And that way we can landscape around it and clean that area up nice.
I have no further questions or comments. Does anyone else have anything?
I'm just a little concerned on backing out of that parking space onto Church Street with that sign there. Is that gonna obstruct view? Say you pull straight in to the existing 6 parking spaces?
It shouldn't, because the setback requirement, I think of a minimum 15 foot,
Okay.
and this is, the parking area is only 20 foot, so it's not gonna really encroach. I mean, we can bump it back another 5 foot and make it even with the parking lot, so it's no obstruction.
I just think only because you pull into that spot there, you have that sign, you're gonna back out of that spot into something coming down Church Street.
I mean, we certainly can set
Yeah.
it back even with the edge of the parking lot.
Well, could you put it in
For
the
visibility.
lawn area, right in the center of the lawn, and that way you'd get another parking spot? Because now you lose a parking spot by putting it there.
I think their goal was to have it closer to
Right.
the road for visibility.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I think you'll see it though, you'll see that on the side.
With the children's center there, if the sign's there, you can't see the sign.
Yeah. Just enough so you can creep out, see.
Yeah, well, like I say, we certainly can bump it back the extra couple of feet to make the visibility, that's not an issue there.
Perfect.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Yes, I get that.
Do we have any other questions? I don't.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Do we, Would someone like to make a motion on this application, please? Kind of a big one.
Do we need to separate, well, there are a couple of issues before we make a motion. Do we need to separate the sign out because we don't know what it's going to say, or the lettering or whatever? Does that have to be separated out for them to come back with the final design of the sign, what it says?
Could we do a conditional approval with the understanding that they do have to come back for sign appearance approval?
Yeah, we could,
I'd be comfortable with that.
okay. And what about the square footage?
The square footage of the apartment?
No, of the business. It's greater, currently it's greater than 1,500 square feet, and it says that if it's greater than 1,500 square feet, we need a public hearing.
May I?
Sure.
We haven't had a chance to get in and actually measure the inside dimensions of the business. Would it be possible to do that and get that information back to you, or? We know the outside of the building, but we don't know the actual size of the shop.
The back section is where you would enter the back of the building, which wouldn't be part of the shop. It's the hallway that gets you downstairs, upstairs, and into the store itself. It's 35 foot deep. There's a 4 foot stairway that occupies some of that, and then there's at least a 4 foot. So you're taking out 8 foot by 35 foot out of the store itself, which wouldn't be store area. I don't know what that brings us down to. And then in the front, you have the entryway that takes out the entrance, which is the store area. It's like you walk in and there's a set of doors going either way, and then a little further in is the stairway to the upstairs. So I'm sure we're comfortable with making the 1,500 square foot without any problems.
Well, I think entrance to a business is part of the business size. So, but I don't think, my opinion is that you should use the space for your antique store to the very best of your ability, the way you'd like to, because if the planning board has said there's no hindrance to your using the property the way you're planning to use it, I'm hearing lots of positive things about, no, I don't see a change of impact with traffic, etc. So I'm hearing a lot of positives here. Okay, the handicap ramp looks good. It looks like you have ample parking. I think it would be a shame to squeeze this foot or that foot. Oh, that's for that stairway, and but it's all part of, since the handicap ramp is taking people in, that's all part of the business.
Okay.
If it required a public hearing, I still do not, my opinion is, I would not vote against it at the public hearing. I would just say the public hearing made it follow our ordinance, and therefore, hooray, follow the ordinance, you get the size that you've got there without squeezing a little of this or a little of that, and you still move forward.
I mean, everything that's there is there. We don't need to change anything. It's just a question of how you designate that space as to what it belongs to.
Yes.
Right.
And so you could shave a little, oh, that goes upstairs, but I think if you're going to say your handicap access to the store is at the back, then that's all part of the store. But I don't think having a public hearing on it is gonna negate what you want to do. I haven't pulled the board, we haven't voted yet, but that's my opinion.
I agree, I agree.
And yet it still keeps us within following our ordinance. Is that an ordinance or a regulation?
It's an ordinance.
Thank you, it's an ordinance. So that's a voted on requirement by the town, not a regulation by the HDC.
Is that something that you would set up, or how does that work?
Yep, there's a process for doing public hearings.
It would mean, however, that we wouldn't be making a decision tonight. Because the purpose of the public hearing is to provide public notice and to give the butters and so forth a chance to make comment, and they have to receive certified mailings. I mean, I know Lynn and Rob are aware of this and how this process works. But it needs a certain amount of lead time because it's a legal notice in the paper, and so it would mean
Next
at
month.
the earliest next month. So I don't know how that fits with the whole scheme of things for you.
Can we hear from Lynn again? Come on up.
My only comment is that, you're talking about the handicap, the hallway that they use for the handicap ramp would be store space, but it wouldn't be because they have to leave it clear for the handicap area coming in. It's really common area for that space and the upstairs, and I figured 230 square feet, 240 square feet of that particular area, which would bring you under 1,500.
You can't get into the store if you don't go through there, so it's gotta be part of the store.
But you can't get upstairs, it's common space, it's not,
Okay.
it's like when you have a store at a
Sure.
mall, you don't count the hallway in the center of the mall, it's just the store space itself. So that area is really common area, not retail area, if that makes sense.
Is this back portion separated from this front portion?
Yeah.
Like when you come in here?
Yes.
Right?
So where you come in here,
Okay.
this area is totally separate from this area.
Okay.
And right here, you've got a bathroom that goes to this area. But this whole area is common, there's a staircase up, and that's common area.
Okay.
So it's a common area, it's not really a retail area, and that makes a difference to your calculations. If we have to do an extension of the code, we'll make that work. So we
Well, I think everything you're hearing from the board is positive, so it's not, you're not hearing.
The thing is, when you come in the back door off the ramp, the door to the shop is right there, it's not like you have to go down. You come in and there's the door right there. So it's not in the store, it's just in the common section. I don't know how you wanna handle that, or how that falls in.
If we need the public hearing.
Well, whatever, yeah, whatever, I'm just saying it's.
I mean, I guess it says retail area is greater than 1,500 square feet.
And common area is about 8 by
35?
8 by 30. Did you know that?
Okay.
And it goes to the store. So it's about 8 by 30.
The shopping area is in front of here?
Yes.
Okay.
That whole back section is a separate section in itself. There's an actual wall the whole way down through there that accesses the basement and the upstairs.
If we do, give a certificate of approval on this application as it stands right now, it would have to have the condition that the applicants will return for sign design approval. It would have to have the condition that the retail space, if the retail space is greater than 1,500, that we would have to have a public hearing. You guys would just have to know that that's a condition of the approval.
So if we get some actual measurements and find we can conform with it.
And who do we get to measure it and make the decision of what is actually retail space and what isn't? That's, you know, is that the code enforcement officer? So that would have to be a condition of the approval as well. And then we would have to, you guys would have to decide if you want to go ahead and go with the public hearing thing, if it turns out to be greater than 1,500 square feet. Is that something that you would be?
Well, who would you prefer to measure this?
I don't know who the official in town would be to do that. I would think it would be the code enforcement officer, Jess.
Who's also the building inspector.
Who's
so-
the building inspector.
Right, that would probably be the appropriate.
So he would measure it, figure out what is the definition of retail as far, you know, as opposed to common space bathrooms and all that.
Because when we met with him, he said we'd have to have scale drawings of the upstairs anyway, so they want to know exactly how big each
Right,
room would be.
as long as you know that there are a couple of conditions on this COA. Does the board have anything? I can't talk and write at the same time, sorry.
Would the 1,500 square feet cover most of that building?
Well, that's the issue, Stanley. The footprint is, what we say, 1750? And they're discussing whether the entire footprint is the retail store, or only a portion of the footprint is the retail store. Do you count the entryway, storage space, etc.?
But you need at least 685 square feet for dwelling space.
They have it for the dwelling space, but our ordinance says if it's greater than 1,500 square feet of retail store, they need a public hearing. So we're trying to decide, since we don't have those specific dimensions, how we would make a conditional permit.
It should be conditioned on whether it be 1,500 square feet or less than that.
Yes. You're writing these notes down,
I am,
my friend.
I am. And if it's all right with you guys, I can make the motion.
You can.
Okay.
Please.
I move that we grant the certificate of approval on this application with the following conditions. Going in backwards order. The sign is the exact same sign that exists there now. It will be restored and moved closer to the street, but not so close to the street that it blocks the sight line of cars backing out of the driveway. It will be positioned so that it is visible from both sides. Also, the approval is conditional upon the applicants returning for a sign design approval at a later date. Font, lettering, color.
Name.
Name of the store.
Most important part.
Hardest part, too.
Yeah.
Also, the third condition is that the square footage of the retail space, if it is 1,500 square feet or less,
Or more, then they'll have to come back.
If it exceeds 1,500 square feet, the HDC will need to hold a public hearing.
Yeah.
And that is my
So
motion.
if we make it 1,500 square foot, we're okay. If it goes over, we go to a public hearing. That's simple enough.
And amend the ramp will be painted?
Oh, yes,
Right?
yes. The ramp, the handicap ramp will be constructed of pressure-treated wood, and after the appropriate aging period, will be painted white to match the.
Or stained
Yeah,
white.
stained white,
Yeah.
Yep.
And you had said probably some decorative
decorative
features
flowers.
of planters or
That's,
something.
yeah, those, I wrote those
That
details
way we
down.
can take them out for the winter
Yeah.
for plowing purposes.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, that's actually a good plan.
the snowbags will cover it then.
Let me know when you're done.
So I have a motion, do I have a second from anybody?
Second.
Second, okay, thank you, Rob. Any more discussion?
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Just clarification on the sign. The sign ordinance specifies the setback from front and side lot lines. I just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
I believe it's 15 foot from the
It's,
front.
it's 10 foot, in Historic District 1, it's 10 foot from the front
Okay,
and 25 foot from the side.
or more than
Fine on the sides.
the back, the setback from the street. I believe the parking area there is like 20 foot deep, so we can keep it back within that area, so we don't obstruct the view.
I mean, it's something that the building inspector, code enforcement would probably check anyway, but I figured that since we're talking about it, and if you're planning on moving it, that at least you are aware of what the setback is.
You don't wanna dig those holes again.
The setback won't be an issue. We can make that work.
Okay.
If there's no more discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Right. Sorry it was so
I
complicated.
know, thank you for
We
bearing
do
with us on
try
that.
to hit all the points.
Better to get them now. Get it over
So,
with.
so the critical thing in the short term is getting the measurements done.
Measure.
Because if you're gonna need a public hearing, you wanna do that so that you make it in for the next meeting.
So if you can get the measurements, if you could get Jess over there or someone to measure, and send me an email.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there, okay?
Yep.
All right, sounds good, thank you so much.
Deb, Dan, you have 14 Church Street on your application. Where do you want me to mail the certificate of approval?
191 Main.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's on your check.
All right,
That's
191 Main.
We're still
Okay.
there.
I know you're still there, and yep, you do have a mailbox.
Has it sold yet?
Not yet.
I want the granite post with the watering can.
That's cute, isn't it? Yeah.
all right, I think
Thank you very much.
we've got a check
Thank you.
from you.
Yep.
Good luck, thank you. We still have- Thank you, Lynn, for your help as well. All right, I'm gonna put all this together.
Yes, please.
Do I have Ellie's letter in there? All right, we're gonna move right along. To, the applicant approval spreadsheet, AKA homework. I'll go first. Okay, I did my homework.
Wait, let me get out my checklist, let me get out my grading book here. Okay, Susan.
I went by Timothy Stevens, 3 Scotland Road, which, if you remember, he knocked down a really bad rusty old shed and put up a one-story,
yes.
2-stall garage.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful.
Why didn't you explain to Rob what we're talking about?
So,
Please tell me.
That's because
I'm
you're,
looking through my pile and I.
your homework assignment is right here.
No, we didn't give you a
Next time.
Yes.
So what we're doing is, we have a spreadsheet of, certificates of approval that have been granted, and there's a 2-year window, so if you're granted an approval, you have 2 years to complete your work. So we periodically check up on, projects, homeowner projects that, it's been 2 years, it's been 3 years, let's check and see if they actually did if they finished it, if they did it at all. So we are reporting on our, so Virginia last month gave us all an assignment to go and check, follow up on. So we're basically following up.
Welcome to the board.
Thank you very much.
So what you have in hand is the certificate of approval. I think, did I give you 2? Let me see, Rob, 2.
Yep, I have 2.
Okay, and so, that one's a little overdue. It was, came due in 20, and And so, what you do is, you look and see what they planned, and you can look at the plans that are attached that they gave to the board, and then you go and see if it looks as if it's done. Obviously, you're not gonna walk on someone's property. Some of it you can see just fine from the road.
Yep.
If you feel as if you need to get onto the property, the phone number should be on the application form that's right underneath the certificate of approval. You can say, oh, your work was out back, can I come and look at it? And then next month you bring those back and say, Virginia, I went to these 2 properties and they're great. Or not, whatever. So you did Stevens and then?
Did Stevens, and then I did down the chimney, right up there.
Yes.
Yes.
And she had a brick chimney, and then she was putting in a pellet stove. And so she had proposed to build a wooden structure with brick facade on it, and then the thing at the top, this stainless thing at the top, and it looks beautiful. So check
Then
on both
don't
of
lose
those.
those, give them back to me because
Those are the originals.
Yes.
those are the, all of this actually is in the
Those are the
residence.
originals, Rob.
Right.
All of these are in the residence folder.
Panic.
In the future, could I not have originals?
But it's okay, the original actually is in the property owner's file.
I mean,
If you lose it under the chair, it's okay.
there is a rule with me that you never,
Okay.
ever.
You're not the first person I've
Good
met.
to
with
know.
that.
These are copies.
Thank you.
There's a copy everywhere, and now, according to Susan Eyre, it's all saved in the cloud, so you're.
Yes, I
using
love
it.
clouds.
That's
I
right.
love clouds.
But if you bring it back, you get.
I will
get an
definitely, I'm
extra-
gonna
an
do a
extra
separate
star.
folder, I'm gonna put it in my book, and I'll make sure it's saved. It just,
Okay.
sometimes it ends up on my desk, and it goes to somewhere office with the title, and they call me up and say, what's this?
This certificate of approval.
Never happens in my house, no. Okay, Glenn, how about you? Did you do your homework? Susan did her
You
too.
all done, Susan?
I am, I did mine too.
All right. Well, I was special, I got 3.
Well, he's checking up on her property, so we thought he.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the first one on my pile here is 176 Main Street. The applicant and owner of the property is Carol Carbonell. And this was also a pellet stove installed, and they needed to put a vent pipe, and the proposal was the side of the house has a bump out for one of the rooms, and that's where the stove was going to go, and they were going to put a stack up through that little bump out, but the bump out only goes halfway up the building, so the pipe was going to go up from that up to the roof line and above the roof line. When I visited the site, I did not see a pipe coming through there, so I don't know if they just didn't do it or if they chose another path for the pipe, but I looked around and I didn't see the pipe coming out anyplace else, so I'm not sure what happened.
Okay.
So,
Maybe they changed their mind.
maybe. The second one on the pile is 46 Little River Road,
That's my neighbor.
and our chairperson knows that property very well.
Yeah, that's our property.
That's the barn
Yeah.
on the property next to where Susan lives. And this, it's interesting because the description says added roof over south porch, which was done. But all the attachments were cut sheets for lighting fixtures.
Yes, that's because Mr. Prescott came back,
Did 2 phases.
yes.
Okay,
For
did the
lighting.
roof first
Yes,
and then the lights.
yes.
So, I took a look, I drove by, I stopped, I looked at it, and everything that was proposed appeared to be done. All the fixtures matched, and there was nothing in this about the roof, but that might have been in the separate, that was in the first add, yeah. But anyway, it's been done as well, so.
My understanding was that when the roofer was there, he said, you're gonna need a porch, you're gonna need a roof over that porch, because it's a metal roof and it just dumps.
Right.
And you don't wanna be coming out your front door or your side door.
You'll take someone out, yeah.
Yeah, so he was there and they did it then, so actually he came back and, after the fact.
Yes.
That's why it was, the roof was separate.
And the final one that I looked at was right around the corner from 46 Little River Road at number 52, at the intersection where Farm Road goes off of Little River Road. It is the property of Stephen and Sheila Briggs, and this was for the removal of an old farmer's porch on the side of the barn, and they were creating a 4-season room out of it. And a huge, big project, really. That was the before picture, and I didn't take a picture of the final product, but really nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this is the rendering of the company that did the work.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Really beautiful.
And
Yeah.
actually, the detail in the final product is nicer than this, partly based on the discussion that we had, because there are 9x9 windows all around, and below it, there's kind of it was gonna be just a flat area, and after discussing it with them, they redesigned it to have panels, like recessed panels on the bottom, and that all got incorporated into it, so it looks very nice. So, checked off all the boxes.
Very good, thank you.
That all great?
That's it.
That was all good?
Maddie, who'd you have?
I had 3 Chase Street. They just added vinyl, barn red vinyl siding with white trim, and that's done. The other one, I have to go back and check some more because.
So that one was LaPan, your
Yes.
first one?
Yep,
Yeah,
okay. The other one is 162 Main Street. They were replacing 2 doors, and they were going to put mullions down the side lights of one of the doors, and I can't tell if they are or not, so I've got to go back and check that one out, but, so I'll hold on to that one.
I do.
That was the 2 I had.
Okay.
What did I call it? 162. If I had my glasses on, I would have known that was 8.
Okay, so you're gonna check on Santillos again.
Yes, I've got to do a follow-up.
Okay, Stan, did you do your homework?
I
I don't think you
really
gave
do-
him a homework, did you?
I didn't receive anything for homework.
I wrote down Corson's and Straw Hub. I didn't give you any homework? Those aren't the ones I gave you. Do you have Levesque and Alessio?
I have Lebec,
Ah, there you go.
and
It should be right on the front.
On the
sheet.
front?
Lebec, 176 Main, 176 Main, Alessia. I got 2 Lebecs.
I didn't give any to Stan? How did you get away with that? Well, next month.
Okay,
I'll check and see.
I will need to look at one of the certificates.
Teacher's pet.
Yeah, that's the one.
No, I think these are the ones they want me to go to.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 176 Main Street.
So, don't worry, I've got a clip for you somewhere. I don't know why I didn't do that, but not to worry. You
Okay.
don't have to stay after school yet. So I did 3 signs.
This goes with, I'm sorry, part of that goes with
Oh, the Briggs.
Fit Briggs application.
I did 3 signs and they're all okay. Burley,
Long
Annette,
office.
and Benson.
Okay.
And then the other one I had was the Congregational Church, and they're still working on it.
Okay.
Because that was an extension, remember?
Yes.
And they needed
You mean
more
they're not
time.
done yet?
They're not done yet. Okay, so my signs were done, and I'm waiting on the Congregational Church. And Stanley will have a homework assignment next time.
Okay.
So I didn't bring any more because I didn't want to spread this too thin. Okay?
Thank you, it was
Thank you.
overwhelming.
Yes.
All right, so if we are finished with that bullet point. Then let's move on to number 3, which is the discussion of the joint planning board and HDC meeting. I talked with Lynn today on the phone, the planning board. Ooh, would you like to talk about it? We might as well use you.
Correct. They're concerned about language in the ordinances overlapping. Some feel that having it in both sections is good, some feel that it's already covered. And I think they would like to go through the ordinances and update and just make sure that we're all on the same page. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of double, like got them here, got them there.
Right.
But I think that's one of the major concerns that.
Or at least direct, I watched your meeting on
Yeah.
YouTube, so at least to say, see also,
Yeah.
so at least it points residents
Correct.
in other direction, in all the directions they need to go.
Yeah.
So,
But I think our whole town, I mean, the planning board is notorious for like C1, C2 zones, you know, everything. There's several locations everywhere. So it's not the historic, it's the whole town
Right.
ordinance.
I think that they're just, I mean, I think that they're trying to tidy up all of the ordinances. It's just that they wanna work, they're not singling us out.
No.
Don't
No,
believe they're
yeah, I
singling
think
us
that's
out.
right.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
Yeah, and we've heard that for the past, well, for a long time, but within the past year and a half, that there's a lot of vagary stuff going on in there, and anything we can do to tighten up and clarify the language, I think we should. So, Lynn is, the planning board is inviting us to join them at their next meeting, which would be a work session on June 6th at 6:45. It's a Tuesday. Okay. Is it appropriate if we go through are we just gonna let the planning board lead, or is there stuff that we can come and say, well, what do you think about this? What do you think
No,
about
I
this?
think you should bring your concerns as well.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been here long, but there's some overlapping things, there's some, you know, they come here, they go there, do they come here first, do they go there first? We've had a couple instances where I was like, maybe you should have went to historical before you even came here.
right. That's always been a struggle.
Yeah, and I think maybe just being on the same page of that stuff as well. The thing we can't talk about, or talk about,
The thing we can't talk about.
Yeah.
I believe that came up a little bit as well, but I think everyone's waiting for guidance on that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I haven't been here long, but there's one that I'm just really concerned with about where that goes, who does that.
Yeah, so you'll bring that up at that next meeting too.
Here's my biggest concern about that. It's so ambiguous right now where things fall and who goes to where. And if you look at the town of Kingston, what's our biggest asset? Our lakes, our open space, our historic district. And if we mess it up because someone thought they should have gone or didn't go somewhere and that gets messed up, if you ruin a historic house, you can't get it back. And once it's done, it's done. And it's the most important thing about our town. And we really, I mean, we can't just be loosey-goosey about it. One mistake can destroy it.
Well, leading into that, there's one concern that I want to bring up there is, we make a decision here, does it open up there to not be able to make a decision? You know what I mean? If we make a decision on the planning board, does it short-tail you guys from making a decision going forward on your regulations? Changing a use or changing a building from this to that could open a door and be problematic for this board to issue a certificate, and that is not something I want happening.
Or you've opened it up and now anything can happen and now we've destroyed something.
Yeah.
So it's
It's a
so
huge risk,
important.
it leaves us unprotected.
Right,
but-
and I think some maybe jurisdictional conversation should be had and start there, and I think it may encompass a few more boards, to be honest with you, because you give them approval, and do I have to give them approval? I don't want to give them approval. It changes everything, and that, to me, here, I prefer the historic district to be able to hold the line there, only because I've seen in other towns what happens when you don't.
Right,
You see a commercial door in front of my house and you'll hate life.
right,
And I've seen that.
Yeah.
Because somebody has something.
right.
And it's this commission's, it's this board's charge to watch out for that in the two historic districts. That's our purpose.
Yeah.
So maybe some,
So I have a concern. There weren't really hot button issues with this application tonight, but I have a concern with an applicant getting an approval for us, from us, that isn't a legal thing to do, but we're
Yeah.
not allowed to tell them that it isn't legal to do. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So,
Right.
all of a sudden, Mr. and Mrs. Jones purchase a piece of property because HDC said everything within our jurisdiction is okay. Now, they went to planning board first and came here and assured us the planning board said okay, but it wouldn't always happen like that. So what if they spend their money and then enforcement says, oh, you can't do that? And I don't, that leaves the applicant open to real
Right.
trouble.
I picked up on that when you were discussing that, and in my world, due diligence means a lot. You know, when I discuss property use with people and buying a property, I look them straight in the face, I'm like, you've got some hurdles to jump here, and this one can say yes, and this one can say yes, and that one can say no. So don't make a move until you got all your yeses.
But not everybody tells an applicant that.
Or,
In that world, unfortunately, that's the two words that you're obligated to do your own due diligence without, because
Right.
like you
Nobody's
said,
gonna- nobody's
I've
gonna do
seen
it for
so
you.
many where I'm like, oh, that is not even gonna happen for them, and why are they even in that? Unfortunately, I can't say a word, but.
Yeah, yeah,
But I,
sure.
yeah.
So something that we might want to talk about when we do the joint meeting is that, take this case tonight. We took the word of the applicant and the applicant's real estate agent and the chair of the planning board, as it turns out, and Rob, that at the planning board meeting, they said the use was fine, and they didn't need any further review. We should probably have something,
In writing.
piece of correspondence.
there should be a form.
There
that
should be
gets
something from
passed
the
to
planning board
us.
so it goes into this file in case there's any follow-up that,
We did take a vote on non-jurisdiction.
but a communication, even if it's a
To
memo.
this board.
Back to
This
this
one,
board.
Concerning. Okay.
we've already okayed it.
Yeah.
We okayed this.
Yeah,
And again, we can discuss it as a group, but while I thought of it, I figured I would mention it.
Right,
Just-
so if the applicant, if you're not here that day and the applicant doesn't happen to have the planning board chair as a real estate agent,
We
we're-
won't know.
We're
Yeah.
blind
Right,
as to what to do with this applicant. So I think that would be really important if the planning board tells them, you're all set as far as use or
Correct.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just something that indicates.
Then we
what-
can
what-
act in our,
Which property. it was
within our
going to.
jurisdiction.
It seems to me that the HCC is sort of an overlay of the planning board. You
Well-
have both
But it's
land
not.
use boards. Who has jurisdiction over what and who has jurisdiction over that?
So one of the things that Attorney Huddy tried to point out to us very clearly is that we're not overlay. This is planning board business and you can't touch it, and this is HDC business. She made it very clear, and what we used to think was our business, she said is planning board business, so we're kind of getting used to that. But she didn't say it was overlay. Yes, we're a land use board, and but we have our own ordinances specific to the historic district.
Now, would this be like a hierarchy? If somebody got a denial here, they can appeal it to the planning board? Would it work that way?
No, any applicant that has a denial here can go to the zoning board for an appeal. Anybody who's not
Okay.
happy with the decision that we make can go to the zoning board. And that's the process there. That's always been that way.
You know, I think again, I haven't been there long, but in some of the discussions we've had for certain things, that's a historic board decision. And questions will come up from me, and I've seen a couple other members about, did you go to the historic board? We had one a couple weeks ago. Nope, okay, all right, well, maybe you should go there first. I mean, again, that was my thought on that, because we could start the process with you, but I mean, I can see what you're asking for, and I know that living in the district, none of that's gonna fly.
It had been the practice for many, many years that if an applicant was in the historic district and it was commercial use, that they were always directed to come to HDC first and then go to planning board. But oftentimes we would get wrapped up in a discussion about the use, and that's what has changed over the last year, and that's why the attorney's been involved. And, so now it's a little, because the use jurisdiction doesn't fall here, the impact of the use falls here, but not the use itself. So it might be more appropriate in some cases for an applicant to go somewhere else first and then to come here. So, I mean, but again, getting the two boards together, hopefully we'll be able to sort that out.
All right, so you've got that on your calendars.
Just
what? One more thing.
maybe thinking about a bunch of things. I mean, I know I'm gonna make a list of stuff that, and again, just in the few meetings I've been to, a lot of things have popped in my head about jurisdiction, especially with these.
Okay. All right. That's done. I have discussion of Attorney Grandy's guidance document. However, it is client privilege, so I'm wondering if we can't read it out loud on YouTube. I don't think so.
I think we can vote to make that public, because it's just,
That's what she said in her email,
Yes,
was so we
she
could
said
vote
to-
to make it public if we chose to.
yes,
Is that what you?
there's nothing secretive about it.
Since it impacts the public.
Yeah.
So she said, on one last note, this document is a confidential legal memo that is protected by the attorney-client privilege. Of course, it is within the board's discretion whether to release it to members of the public not employed by the town or the board, but the board will need to vote whether to do that. No single board member can properly make that decision. And since it's all about how a public board, the Historic District Commission, functions, which impacts the public, I can't see any reason to keep it private, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
I don't have strong feelings either way, so.
I don't either. I mean, I could convince myself that we should do it in non-public, but I mean, Virginia makes a good argument, and I could go that way too.
Yep. And it is something that we're gonna be, as we get more accustomed to the new way of doing our board business, it's gonna come up, we may as well do that, make it public, so that at least people, know what we're referencing.
Right, for public education purposes, it would be good to have it
Right.
out there.
So we can vote on that right now if you want to.
So I'll make a motion that we entertain communication from council. There's no date on it.
April 18th.
There is.
The cover letter is April 18th. The cover email to which the document was attached was April 18th.
Okay, from council, town council, received on April
18th.
18th, 2023. and titled Kingston Historic District Commission Reviewing the Impact of a Use. That we discuss that as a public document. We're going to discuss it in public.
Yes. I second that.
Seconded by Virginia. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any discussion on this, or we have probably a lot of discussion on this?
I can hand one over
We made it
because,
public, you can't see it.
Why don't you let me, because you have the email attached.
And I'll just look around with you.
Oh, this is the next one.
Peek at yours.
Virginia, this was the application for Dan and Deb.
oh, thank you.
Because I know you guys need copies.
I made a copy for myself
Excellent.
a long time ago.
On her email, she also says, sorry,
Sure.
Is your name Ron?
where does she say that?
Oh, I don't remember.
She still owes us the official document of why we don't have jurisdiction over use.
So she writes, I've created a short guidance document for the HPC to use when an application changing the use of a building comes before you. I have also revised the long memo that I initially drafted in December, and I will provide you with that as well, so the town has the appropriate guidance in its files if it looks for a longer explanation of the law. Please replace the prior version with the revised memo once I've sent it over.
Okay.
So she'll be sending over
Okay.
the revised version.
So that's April, and this is May, not quite a month later. So we don't have that. So I find this very sketchy because it's only part of it. And she picks out some RSAs and expounds on those, or expands on those is the word I'm looking for. And her takeaway was helpful. You can restrict use, but you can talk about impact of use and all of that. I sort of want to wait till we see the full document before I spend too much time discussing this.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
And I really hope we have it before we meet with the planning board, because
Yes.
that'll make a lot of difference if, for example, we might need to change the wording in an ordinance. So the word use is in our ordinance related to historic district. And she's saying only impact of use. So I'd like to see the full document first before we spend a lot of time talking about it.
So that's less than a month away. Can our selectmen give a little nudge?
Yeah.
That would be,
I could try.
thank you, appreciate it.
Have
Or
you,
I could-
Have you spoken with her recently, or?
No,
No.
no, I have not.
Have you at all about
I've
this?
been told that, no, I've been told any questions or comments I have go through Susan Ayer. So,
I will talk to Susan.
yeah, okay. Yeah. So I didn't give any feedback on this via Susan Ayer to you.
In the last paragraph of her memo, she's saying that some of these ordinances have to be ironed out. They seem to be a hodgepodge of various provisions, and they need to be organized. And so she says, understandably, this is very confusing. And I'm just wondering what has to be ironed out. The way things stand, it's confusion to the applicant, it's even confusion to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very legal-minded myself.
So isn't that part of the goal of our joint meeting with the planning board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A June meeting together with the planning board we should begin to poke at all of these. I don't know if we'll get it all done at once, but,
Right, I mean, I think that would be a big one, just,
Well, can town council be invited to the planning board meeting? I think it's May 16th.
No, the one that we're meeting with the planning board is, June
June
6th.
6th.
Next Tuesday?
No, June 6th.
Oh, it's June 6th.
Yeah, the first Tuesday in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
so I don't know necessarily whether the attorney needs to be there at that meeting, but at some time, when we, if we decide to change wording in a warrant article, they certainly need to be run by, the attorney, whether she needs to be at
Yes.
the meeting or not.
Yeah.
Did the planning board, did that include, Glenn Greenwood?
Sure, it will.
Okay.
I'll make
And
sure they know that.
The code enforcement officer, Nancy Jessup, would he, because he gets the reaction to it,
It would be helpful if he could be there. I mean, if both of them could attend, I mean, it would make the discussion more fruitful, I think, more complete.
right. So, you know, when we had the meeting with Attorney Grandy, near the end, it was clear that lots of things needed to be cleared up. And kind of a little jest, I said, boy, a lot's gonna fall on your shoulders, Jess. And he didn't think that was so funny, because there's a lot that's falling on his shoulders. And it would be good for him to hear that discussion, so he understood better, what his responsibilities end up being.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the use thing will fall under someone's purview, one of the boards. I mean, my feeling is it's gonna be zoning. But I would like all the other boards to have a very strong position in those decisions with either a recommendation or a view, maybe, on a change of use from other entities. I think that would maybe fill a gap that's definitely wide open. You know, I mean, if they're gonna change a use, I think we should have a voice from the historical board. I think the planning board should also have a voice as well.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think it would be helpful for the code enforcement officer who needs to enforce those decisions that your board or our board makes. He needs to know what things he needs to enforce.
In some towns, the code enforcement officer is considered the zoning official and is the one who tells an applicant whether or not the use is allowed at that spot.
They would go to that person first instead of the planning
Yeah.
board or HDC.
And that person would sign off on it and say, yes, it's allowed, no, it's not allowed, and if it's not, here's the path you have to go.
So he has a new position, has that, I mean, is his job description that specific right now or not? I mean, it's not in our, even in our ordinances.
No, I don't, it's not the way we've been doing it.
Right.
I'm just saying that in some towns, that's how it happens. And given our new process or revised process, the code enforcement person could play a bigger role perhaps than that person has in the past. But again, I think it's all part of the discussion, all the more reason that person be here for the discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
So you'll take care of,
Yep.
okay.
Glenn, code enforcement officer, and again, the same thing I just said to all of you about concerns about how getting together.
Right, so just to expand on that a little for the code enforcement officer, so I give you an assignment, you go check on Ellie Alessio's house and you see that she didn't do what we gave her permission to do and what she required. We don't have any jurisdiction to knock on her door and say, hey, you didn't do those steps right. The code enforcement officer has to pick up that document and go do it, and so knowing those pieces are really important. And it's happened. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this board.
I thought I'd just pick on Ellie for fun, because I knew he had Ellie's.
Yeah, we're not an enforcing board.
We are not an enforcing board.
Another thing that bothers me is that we're just lay people and we're writing these things up. Shouldn't that be reviewed by town council to be sure that there are no ambiguities and vaguenesses.
I think that's one of the reasons for the meeting, because there is a lot of ambiguity, sorry, can't say the word, in this. I mean, I saw just with the meeting tonight, there's some things that are like, okay.
When we do a denial, we have to be specific. 102.4A1, whatever, and then do that specifically. When it's, like today, we look at the ordinances, we, excuse me, try to go by them, but unless gets hot and fiery and we need a public hearing, or there's a lot of dispute or something, mostly those don't get reviewed by legal oversight, but certainly the denials do, and get sent within a certain amount of time, specifically written with explicit reasons why they were denied.
But we don't do a lot of those.
We don't do
We
a lot of
don't
those.
do a lot of denials, we try to work with people.
We don't, we
Yeah.
try to work with people, but when we do, we can't just say, sorry, denied. It has to be very specific, and all of that's in our regulations.
Right.
So let's hear from the public, please. Yes, Mr. Willett.
Scott Willett, 189 Main Street.
We are going to limit comments to agenda items only that we've discussed tonight. Okay, good.
So, I like what I'm hearing from the board, but I think it needs to give you guys more of a push and a little bit more forceful. I think this board must take the lead on the historic district ordinance.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I think this board must take the lead on the historic district ordinance changes, proposals, not just recommend. I really want this board to take the lead, take the force, because like you guys have said, if you allow a loophole to form during these meetings and go unchecked, then you can't get it back. And the charter of this board is to protect the historic district, safeguard the historic district, all those things that are in the master plan, in the master plan. And in order to do that, I think you really need to, make sure as we're rearranging things that we don't lose anything. Ironically, tonight, when you pointed out the 1,500 square feet, that's in that 102.5 that this Attorney Grandy letter says you can't look at. So, those things need to be pulled out of there, because it says historic district must have a public hearing. Well, that is in a section we're not supposed to look at. That's just bizarre. So that should be pulled out of its own section and taken care of. And whatever the uses are, left behind, we want to make sure that the HDC has, input, or more than input, recommendation on what those are, because the planning board, focuses on C123. And you might say, hey, big box retail shouldn't be allowed. And the HDC would say, whoa, no. That undermines, something they're trying to do. So I really want this board to take more of a force on that section, just like I want the planning board to take a force on C123 and industrial, and so forth. I think it's, tell me if I'm going out of bounds.
Okay.
I think it's a bit of a crime, though, that we're here so many months after that initial statement by Attorney Grandy, because now we're in limbo.
We are in limbo.
Should we look at that? Should we not look at that? That's a shame. That's really a crime, because now we've just developed one of those gaps that I just talked about, where, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to look at it. I don't know if I'm supposed to look at it. Something could slip through here. What if you didn't read that section on 1,500 square feet because you're not supposed to? Dan could have gotten approval for 1,700 square feet, and then whoop, Jess Nesbitt raises the flag after he's already purchased the property, and now it's the exact thing that Virginia's done.
Right.
So I really want to see the board. I want to encourage the board, to really, be the force for this district, because no one else will. It's really up to you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
I want to just, because you just said that, the 1,500 square feet, you guys wouldn't look at that to say, hey, this is commercial and it's bigger than that. If you go to the historic district, you need to have a hearing. Like the planning board, you're not looking at that.
No.
Yeah, so that's a huge loophole right now. That's a huge loophole.
And I think that's one of those things with the joint meeting of, you know, because there's another one that I was looking at, and I'm like I mentioned to you, there's no way that's gonna go through historical. Why is it even here? And maybe we can work on that process of, if it's gonna come before us, we need a recommendation. If it's gonna come from them, we're gonna need a recommendation from the other board.
Right.
Okay, can I add on?
Sure.
Sorry. Just thought of something else. So, you know how you were talking about it's confusing because there's multiple sections? Some of that's by design. The ordinance is voted on by the voters. So that's that 102, 103 section.
Yep.
Right? And then that's supposed to be like the enabling language for the individual boards to write their own regulations. So the regulations are in the 1211 site plan review regulations are done by the planning board, where the C123 is voted on by the voters. So it's by design, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's in those two sections, and then each of the boards keep track of their regulations. Like this board keeps track of historic district regulations where the design details are. The enabling stuff is in 102. The design details are in 1200, whatever. Just like C123 is the enabling, and then site plan review and subdivision regs are voted on by the planning board. So it's by design.
Yeah, I mean, the ordinance piece sort of sets the rules. And the regulations establish the process by which the rules get followed through on.
Right, so they'll never all come together.
The regulations are more process oriented, whereas the ordinances are more structure and definition oriented.
But it certainly you could put it and say, hey, you need to go see that section over there for the details. Or you need to go see that section about how do you apply and when the meetings happen, things like that. But yeah, some of it's by design. But you know what would be good is call it right out. If you're in the historic district, step one is what? Come to this board for the initial, you know, non-engineered plan. You know, get a thumbs up, thumbs down. Then if you pass that test, then you go to planning board for the full-on engineered site plan review, which is expensive, right? So you wouldn't want, if you did it reversed, you might have the full-on engineered plan, and then come to this board and get denied, and you spend all that money for, denial. That's why historically it was HTC first, planning board second, but it doesn't say that anywhere in the regs.
No, but it was just an established process.
But if you put it in there through this review.
We did it for the applicant, so it would be easier on the applicant.
Yeah, that would clear it.
I see a lot of conditional approvals with that zoning, and I think, and again, joint discussion. Everybody would be a little more aware of, well, I'm gonna approve it, I'm gonna want, it's gonna be conditional on their approval.
Right,
Yep. All right, I'm done.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public want to have a word? No? Did you say something, Dan? No? Okay. If that is the case, then we can adjourn. So.
Motion to adjourn
Second.
Second?
at 9
All in
o'clock.
favor?
Aye.